asked you to vote on the news, and here's the winner. There's a huge, hidden, heavenly body right here in our solar system. Evidence is mounting that either a brown dwarf star or a gas giant planet is lurking at the outermost reaches of our solar system, far beyond the planet Pluto. According to the British newspaper The Independent, the object is 4 times the size of Jupiter. Experts say the presence of such a massive object could explain why a barrage of comets has been coming from that direction.
Scientists say it may be a new planet on the edge of our solar system. It's called Tyche, named for an ancient Greek goddess. If it's real, Tyche is a supergiant, 4 times the size of Jupiter, made of hydrogen and helium. Scientists from the University of Louisiana say it hasn't been found because it's so far away, 15,000 times farther from the sun than Earth.
New planet found, Tyche, 15,000 times further from the sun than Earth. If anybody knows something about this, it will be my guest today, Billy Carson. Welcome, Billy Carson.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us here again today. You are one of the few people that actually has spent a lot of time doing research on these new planets, and we are going to talk about Nibiru X today. We are going to talk about binary solar systems. We are talking about the new planet and dwarf stars that we have seen in the link here in the beginning here. And Billy, welcome again. And I'm going to state that I know not much about Nibiru. I know not much about binary solar system. So I'm looking forward to having you teaching me a little bit about it today.
Yeah, it's a very interesting subject that a lot of people have been really confused about, because you hear Planet X, then you hear about Nibiru, then you hear about brown dwarf stars from NASA. So what I'm going to try to do is try to help educate everybody as best as I can as to exactly what Planet X, Nibiru, and the red dwarf star. Planet X itself is a term given by NASA, believe it or not. So NASA came up with the term Planet X. Conspiracy theorists did not come up with that name.
All right.
In 1983, NASA claimed that they discovered what they call the Planet X. And they actually put out
what year? 83?
In 1983.
That's a long time ago.
Long time ago, yeah, exactly. So now more recently, as you'll see a video that you're going to present, CBS News actually came out with an official statement from NASA stating that they have found a planet. They're calling it a gas planet, but it's really a brown dwarf star, in deep space, 15 times farther from the sun than Earth.
That's the one
40 times the mass of the sun.
That's the one we just saw here in the video just now here, and it's called Tyche. Is that right? Yes.
Scientists say it may be a new planet on the edge of our solar system. It's called Tyche.
Yes, absolutely. Sorry, 4 to 6 times the mass of Jupiter. I'm sorry. So it's 4 to 6 times larger than Jupiter. It's about it's very far from the sun. It's about 15 times the distance away from the sun than Earth is, and it's a red dwarf star is what it is. Now, a red dwarf is very hard to see because they don't emit a lot of light, heat energy light. So when you're looking through a normal telescope, you won't actually see it. You need to look through an infrared telescope, and this is how NASA discovered it a very long time ago. They used something called the IRAS telescope. It's an infrared telescope. Even the public used to have access to this telescope. We used to be able to log into it and actually download images and things like that, just kind of like how we do with the Mars rovers. Well, they cut that off in 2011, February of 2011. They actually disconnected the public use of that satellite access.
For what reason? They
claim that they just decided that they were going to just shut it down.
And is it shut it down, or are they still using it?
Yeah, I believe they're still using it under a different encryption key. That's basically what I feel.
Okay.
You know, so if you go back into some of the papers that actually produced this, and I'll send you the link to this so you can provide the link for everybody. On December 30th, 1983, Chief NASA Scientist of the Infrared Astronomical Satellite Telescope, IRAS, announced that NASA had discovered Planet X. The findings were reported in 6 daily newspapers. So the papers that reported this story, and we'll provide the links for you, were, let's see here, the Washington Post, December 30th, 1983. If you even go further back than that, you'll find a few other articles about this. The U.S. World News Report, the New York Times, Astronomy Magazine, and Newsweek.
We're gonna put all those links up on the marsmoonspace.com, where you can find the video here and pictures and links, so everybody can go in and check them all out after this conversation.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So it's been put out there like this thing is this big conspiracy, when it actually made international news. It's not you know, some kind of fantasy people made up in their heads, or reading an ancient text and going, oh look, this thing is coming. No, it's actually real. And if you go into the ancient text, if you read the Sumerian tablets, you find that we had a planet in our solar system that exploded. The actual cause of that explosion is a controversy. Some think it was exploded in an ancient war. Some think it exploded because a moon of this, a planet that had a moon of this red or brown dwarf star actually smashed into that fifth, would have been the fifth planet. It was called Tiamat in ancient times. Okay, and a little bit later, after those deep antiquity times, it was actually called Krypton, believe it or not. So it's kind of got some correlation with Superman. Okay. Yeah.
Someone picked up on that in the 50s.
Somebody really picked up on that and made a lot of money with it. So, so what happened was Nibiru orbits a brown dwarf star. So a planet that's orbiting a brown dwarf star with its own moons came through our solar system. The moons of Nibiru, 2 of them smashed into Tiamat, which used to be also called Krypton, exploded the planet. Parts of that planetary debris actually hit Mars. Okay. Mars wasn't actually a planet in our solar system. It was a moon of this massive planet, which was probably 4 to 5 times the size of Earth. Okay. Okay, so Mars was a moon of another planet. That's why when the planet exploded and released Mars, it came into its own elliptical orbit around our sun. And if you backtrack the orbits, you can tell that it used to be in a different orbit, and it actually was orbiting this planet that exploded. When that planet exploded, it turned into the asteroid belt, which in ancient times is also called the hammered bracelet. Even in the Bible, they call it the hammered bracelet. That's what it's called, and as it encirculates our solar system in that area. Part of that, a big chunk of it, regained a new orbit and actually formed into the Earth. And along with it came Kingu, according to ancient texts. Kingu was another moon of that giant planet that exploded that we captured with our gravity, and then it reformulated. We had our moon and we had our Earth. Okay. Okay. And that's why
Yeah. Go on.
Yeah. And this is why our moon is primarily helium-3. It's made of totally different elements than we have here on Earth. If the moon was a creation of being a smashed asteroid into the Earth and then breaking apart and reforming, we would have some elements from Earth on the moon, but we don't. The moon is primarily helium-3, which is a very, very clean energy burning source. The only exhaust that comes out of it is steam. And it's one of the most cleanest, purest forms of energy in our solar system that we know of right now. So mining the moon would be a very smart thing, which I think they might be doing already, but that's a whole other story. But anyway, so we had Kingu. It came up with this. Now, what happened was, if you learn in school, you learn that we had Pangea, one continent that broke apart. Okay. If you study planetary physics, you'll find that a planet cannot form with all the landmass on one side. It just won't form. No. Okay. So how did this happen? Well, when the chunk broke off from Tiamat and came into this, new orbit and started reforming itself into a ball because of gravity forces, we did have most of the landmass on one side. And as the planet reformed itself, or as that piece of planet formed itself back into a ball, those continents, began to shift and move around the planet. And that's how you got the broken continents that we have today. That's what caused the continental drift. It was caused by the fact that the planet had to reform itself into a ball, because gravity always wants to make it back into a ball.
Yes, of course.
And this is how we got the continents that we have today. So
interesting.
Yeah. Planet X, and this is all based on pure science and public knowledge that people can look up and research for themselves and figure out that this is not a conspiracy. This is real. So all the ancient texts, including the Bible, mention a time where the sun didn't show for 3 days, the moon moved backwards, the sun moved backwards across the sky. All these different things happen when you have a massive body orbiting your star with a gravitational field. This also brings me to the next point, which is, why are all the planets having global warming right now? Okay, in our solar system, NASA has admitted that every planet is warming up, and it's warming up because the gravitational field from Nibiru and its brown dwarf star is so strong it ripples through our solar system like waves of energy. When the energy goes in, it has to go somewhere. It comes out in the form of heat, and that's why they say right now Saturn's NASA says that Saturn's core is melting. Or so I think they used the Huygens probe to detect this. They said the core. If Saturn was Earth, we'd all be dead right now. Okay. So this is directly from NASA. So all the planets in our solar system are experiencing a warming phase right now. Global warming is not from the exhaust pipes in your car. It's probably maybe only contributes a very small percentage, maybe 13%, 10%, something like that at the most. It's really from these gravity waves rippling through our solar system. And as this brown dwarf star gets closer to our sun, these gravity waves become stronger and stronger. And what caused the first catastrophe on Mars was when Tiamat exploded, the debris hit Mars. That's why one side of Mars is charred black and the other side is the smoothest planet in the solar system. And the side that was facing the explosion is the one that was the most damaged and burnt. Okay, that caused that extra mass that hit Mars caused the first pole shift of the crust of Mars. Then what happened was, the planet Mars rehealed, it gained its own orbit around our sun, and it actually healed itself. But a little bit later on, Mars had another pole shift due to what we possibly believe might be what we call in ancient texts the Pyramid Wars, which extended from Mars to the Moon to Earth. So, but getting back to the point is, Planet X is Nibiru, which is orbiting a brown dwarf. Now, according to ancient texts, Nibiru was in a nuclear war. They had a very bad war, and there was a breach in their atmosphere. And the reason for them coming to Earth was because they needed to get gold. They wanted to get the gold, not because it made them rich, but because you can take gold and you can actually create a microdust.
So what you're saying, according to ancient text, is that the people from Nibiru came to Earth to use the Earth's resources. Is that what you're saying? Yes. Okay.
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. Yes. So they actually left Nibiru. They on a very close circuit or orbit. They call it a circuit, and came to Earth. And now their orbit is not the same as our orbit around the sun.
No, because you said it was an orbit in eclipse.
Yes, elliptical orbit. Right?
And that
from the ecliptic, which means they're coming in from a different angle. Versus we're orbiting the sun.
And how often would they pass by in a distance where we actually could see it or get close to us?
According to ancient texts, 3,600 years, between 3,400 to 3,600 years, what they call it a shar. And a shar is around that time. So every 3,400 to 3,600 years, they actually orbit our sun and come very close to our inner solar system.
And that is just about now, and that's why we can see some people posting pictures of two suns in the distance and so on and so on. Is that right?
It's very possible. It's hard to tell because of the refresh rates on World-Wide Telescope if that is our second sun, if that is our binary twin to our current sun. It's very difficult to tell because they're very good at hiding things, as you will know. They make it so difficult because this thing can actually come through our area and it can go and come without anybody knowing. Okay, certain times it has come and caused catastrophes. It's caused the Great Flood. It was the cause for the Great Flood, which is all the flood tales from every single civilization that talk about that flood time was caused by the passing of this brown dwarf star. But there's been other times when it's passed by and hardly anything has ever happened. Okay, so, and even according to the ancient texts, the Sumerian tablets will tell you that sometimes it passes by and there's no problem, sometimes it passes by and there's catastrophes. Sometimes there's small catastrophes, earthquakes and things like that. Part of the reason for the pyramid structures around the world weren't only just for energy sources, wireless communication, but also for stabilization of earthquakes. And that's why
how will you explain stabilization of earthquakes with the pyramids?
Yeah, the pyramids, basically, certain pyramids were put in specific geo points on the actual planet and over certain magnetic fields of the planet. And the way that they're constructed were to actually help stabilize the passing of this brown dwarf star and help stabilize the planet with the effects of different types of earthquakes that this can cause. You know, now all the pyramidions are removed, which is the apex is all removed, and the interior machinery has all been removed from all the pyramids. So, you know, that they have no effect anymore. But at those times, they were able to help try to stabilize the planet with the pyramid structures, and that's why they were put at very specific points around the globe.
Yeah,
the Great Pyramid itself is very, it's the dead center of the massive Earth.
I read a few days ago that some people claimed there was a pyramid exactly opposite place of on the Earth of Giza.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a pyramid there. If you draw a line straight through the Earth, you come to a pyramid. There's a massive pyramid just discovered off the coast of Florida, bigger than the one at Giza, inside the Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah. I heard of that. I haven't studied that yet, but I heard of it. Yes.
Yeah, now if you go straight through the Earth in a straight line from that Bermuda Triangle, you end up in Japan, you end up in the Devil's Triangle, and there's a gigantic publicized pyramid there, massive, supermassive pyramid underneath the water in the Devil's Triangle, and directly straight line through to Japan. So there's several 100,000 pyramids on the planet right now. You know, there was a lot of pyramids. They were everywhere.
And you think do you think they all have been emptied for equipment and machinery? Do you think we actually can find one or two pyramids that still has some of the proof? We will.
Yeah, because they found one already. The one off the coast of Florida, actually in the Bermuda Triangle, actually is still emitting some type of exotic energy. There was a gentleman who did a documentary. I forget his name right now, but we'll find the link for that. You can put it on the MarsMoonSpace.com. He actually went out in the Bermuda Triangle with some equipment to measure the effect of what's going on. And the first couple times, all his equipment got drained, his batteries drained out. You know, his instruments went haywire. He had to go out a couple more times. And then every time he got over this specific spot out there, that's when everything would go crazy. And directly under him is actually where the pyramid is located. And so it's still.
It reminds me of the story of the Baltic Sea anomaly and all the failures out there.
Yes,
equipment, electric interference, and stuff like that. But let's stay on Nibiru and the pyramids. It's a very interesting topic. So you think we will find pyramids with all the equipment still inside?
Yeah, there may be one or two left. I think there's one in Alaska, buried in ice. The tip is sticking out right now that they found. It said, according to people who have been around it or found out about it, say they do it. It might still be a wormhole. Never know. A lot of the stuff has never been found. They can't find.
It's related to Nibiru and that's.
And the reason why is because Nibiru is a homeworld is one of the homeworlds of the Anunnaki. Okay, they had many other worlds that they lived on. They traveled, according to ancient texts, if you follow, they came through the Pleiadian star cluster, down through Orion, and down into our area. They're a galactic civilization, and one thing that people make a mistake about with the Anunnaki is the Anunnaki isn't just one type of a being. It's multiple races of beings. It's a generalized term. It's like saying, me and you are both human beings, but when we look at each other, somebody may say that you may be Caucasian and that I may be African, you know. So these are the way what I'm saying. Anunnaki is a general term for races, multiple races of beings. And that's what, when they came to this planet, first to mine the gold, because you can turn the powder into a microdust, and you can suspend that microdust in the atmosphere. That microdust, gold, has a phenomenal way of reflecting sunlight, and it can actually repair an ozone layer. And to add proof to that this is not conspiracy, my car, I have a Mercedes-Benz, I have an S-Class, which is like one of the top of the line Mercedes. And the reason why I bring it up is because the glass is, I have no window tint. I don't need window tint. Why? Because I have microdust gold in my windows. It comes from the factory. That's how they make the car. My windshield, my side windows, everything has gold dust in it. And that's to keep the sunlight out, infrared radiation out, so that it keeps the inside of my car cool. Okay, so they can look that up. That's one of the benefits of gold. So this, when people say, "Oh, this is crazy," why would they put gold in there? It doesn't make any sense. No, it makes perfect sense because we do the same thing here on Earth. That's in my car. This is my car windshield. It's technology. Gold is very valuable.
It's old technology.
Absolutely, you need gold for everything. You know, microchips, computer boards. It's very malleable. It's an excellent transmitter of electricity. It doesn't lose power and friction. So if I'm transmitting a frequency or electricity through a piece of gold from one end, from point A to point B, it's going to maintain 100% of the data or 100% of the electricity or the power, because the friction of the transmission you don't lose anything.
No.
It's an excellent insulator. It's an excellent reflector of sunlight. You need it in satellites. You need it in spaceships. Even you need it in the shuttle we used to launch, rocket ships. Everything has gold in it. Okay, so it's a very important tool. This is what human beings have been tricked into thinking that gold had monetary value, because we used to mine it for the Anunnaki. We were basically helping them get this stuff out of the earth, and it became, to us, a precious metal for trading purposes.
Yeah, jewels, jewelries and stuff like that. Yeah. So basically, gold is not worth more than simple plastic is in reality.
It has technological values.
It has. Value. But the values it's been used for is actually laughable in some way. That we pay thousands of dollars to get some jewelry. What do you call it? Sorry, made of gold and stuff like that.
Exactly. And it's really was supposed to be used for technological purposes. And the elites, they know that. They keep everybody focused on monetary gain and on things like that. Now, the NASA has this other satellite that they launched called WISE, and that's the Wide Field Infrared Survey, Wide Field Infrared Survey Explorer. Okay, that's what it stands for, WISE. Nice. They launched this satellite, and it basically it goes out and it's looking for red dwarf stars and brown dwarf stars. That's all it does.
You sent me a link here to NASA WISE.
Yes.
Yes. Let's see that video here.
Astronomers are interested not only in the bright stars in our neighborhood, which are easily seen here around the sun, but also the small dim objects we can't readily see. Finding these is one of the prime objectives of NASA's Wide Field Infrared Survey Explorer, or WISE. As we move further away from the sun, we focus only on our neighbors within 26 light years. Within that volume, we increase the brightness of the faintest, reddest stars to make them more easily visible. These objects, known as M dwarfs, are the most common type of star in the solar neighborhood. Now, viewing from a distance of 30 light years, we circle all of the known brown dwarfs, faint objects with too little mass to shine stably as stars do. The blue circles show all of the previously known brown dwarfs, while the red circles show the ones that WISE has identified for the very first time. This updated census of our solar neighborhood now shows that brown dwarfs are much rarer than stars, there being roughly 6 stars for every known brown dwarf.
There are trillions of brown dwarf stars out there in space, dark stars that you cannot see with the naked eye or a regular telescope, but they're there. And what NASA has found is more than none, there are more binary star systems than star systems that are by themselves. There are even trinary star systems out there where you have 3 stars orbiting each other in this weird dance. So star systems or solar systems, I would say, that only have 1 star are very rare. It's more or less you have 2. And now what happened was there's also a video link that I sent you which will provide, which is called a very short show called The Great Year. That was documentary that was produced by James Earl Jones. As you all know, he's Darth Vader from Star Wars, the original Star Wars. And he's very eloquently explains the fact that precession of the equinoxes. In other words, as our view from the Earth looking up at the stars, and we see the zodiacs go across the sky, which takes about 27 to 28,000 years or so. The precession of the equinoxes, scientists have noticed that it's speeding up. And they're going, what can cause this increase in speed of the equinoxes? The only thing that can cause that is another massive body orbiting our sun. Because as they get closer, the speed increases, and then there's a breakaway speed. And then they come back in, they speed up, and they breakaway speed again. So this study that was done back in, I think it was 2004, this episode called The Great Year, which is a great documentary. I recommend everybody watch the documentary. It really goes to explaining the fact that we do have 2 suns in our solar system. It's already been known. It explains the perturbed orbits of all the planets in our solar system. Scientists have been looking. The reason why I started looking for Planet X is because they noticed that Neptune was on its side. They noticed that Jupiter and Saturn appear to have been in slightly different orbits. When they backtrack it, you can tell where the orbits were. And they were saying that something had to come through our solar system with a significant amount of mass, gravity.
Gravity, exactly, yes.
Exactly. And so that's when they said we need to find this Planet X. And according to ancient texts, just as they said, there is a Planet X. NASA has found it. They've named it Tyche, T-Y-C-H-E, because of course they would never name it Nibiru to make everybody right. So they've named it Tyche. It's a massive, massive star. There's also a video I sent you with a link for CNN where they talk about the size of it, okay, and how far away it is from our sun, but that it's part of our existing solar system.
You to vote on the news, and here's the winner. There's a huge, hidden, heavenly body right here in our solar system. Evidence is mounting that either a brown dwarf star or a gas giant planet is lurking at the outermost reaches of our solar system, far beyond the planet Pluto. According to the British newspaper The Independent, the object is 4 times the size of Jupiter. Experts say the presence of such a massive object could explain why a barrage of comets has been coming from that direction.
There's no mystery about it. It's not a conspiracy theory. We're not crazy people running around saying there's Nibiru out there. And no, it's actually been discovered, found, and documented by NASA.
That's great. That's awesome. Yeah. What do you think? How do you think this will affect planet Earth in future? That we know that Planet X actually exists, and how do you think it will affect us when it gets the closest to us as possible?
Yeah, a couple of things can happen. One thing that can happen is absolutely nothing. So that's always one possibility. Another thing that could possibly happen is, according to Major Ed Dames, who is my actual remote viewing instructor, as you know, he talks about something called the kill shot sequence. And in the kill shot sequence, he doesn't talk about brown dwarf stars and Nibiru or nothing like that. But what he talks about is our sun having a massive CME, a massive coronal mass ejection that actually hits the Earth and causes a lot of havoc on the planet. And one of the things, in my opinion, yeah, you have? Okay. So one of the things, in my opinion, that can cause something like that would be the orbiting of the brown dwarf. Because when those 2 suns get fairly close, they will electrolyze each other, cause this massive solar storm, so to speak. And if that energy hits Earth, we're going to lose all of our power grids, all of our satellites are going to go down. It could cause a massive EMP, electromagnetic pulse, which can take all the computer chips, all the transistors, everything could burn out.
But you don't think the shield we already have would last for that?
Well, the problem that we have is we have a massive hole in our ozone layer right now, and it's actually growing, which is another problem that we have. And NASA has been trying to search for a way to actually close this this hole, and just breaching our own ozone layer. We're duplicating what happened with the Anunnaki. It's called. They launched these satellites called the Themis, THEMIS, which is a group of satellites that float around the Earth and actually monitor this breach. And the breach is actually getting bigger and bigger right now, and it's so big that you can actually fit, you can fit a planet inside of it. You can fit a moon inside of it. It's a massive breach that we have. So the problem that we have is that breach, with the way that breach is growing, and if you have that many charged particles hitting the planet, there's only so much that the magnetosphere can do. Another problem that we have is our magnetosphere is getting warped. It's not. It used to have this perfect bow shock going on our planet, but now it's twisting and bending in different ways. And part of the reason is because our actual magnetic North Pole is shifting. It used to be, directly above, true north, and now it's moving. I think the true north is actually inside of Russia right now.
Okay.
Yes, true north, magnetic north is in Russia. So our magnetic north, actually, airports have had to renumber their coordinates to their runways because of this, because our magnetic north is moving at a very fast pace, and we'll provide a link for our viewers for that too. Yeah. So what they think is getting ready to happen is what happens every so many thousand years. Our magnetic pole flips. So north will be south and south will be north.
And what will happen when that happens?
Well, nothing will happen in terms of geologically for us, but everything GPS needs to be reprogrammed. All of our systems and sensors will need to be reprogrammed, reconfigured to this, because everything will be changed. But the problem that you have, this magnetic flip is affecting the breach in our ozone layer and how charged particles are managed around the planet. So because of this, there's a situation where if the perfect storm happens, you've got the CME with massive charged particles, you've got a massive breach in the ozone layer, and you have the magnetic field weakened because it's trying to flip. And if all this happens at the same time, there could be a global catastrophe on this planet.
It could be.
So it's just one of the options that could happen. And the third option is there could be some earthquakes. Well, earthquakes are increasing because one of my sites I track earthquakes and geological activity globally, real time, 24 hours a day on my other site called Survive Pole Shift. It's actually a Twitter account that I set up quite a while back, and it's been tracking every single earthquake on this planet for the last 4 years. When I first started tracking these earthquakes, I was only seeing about 40 to 50 a day. Now we're up to about 120 a day globally. Okay. So you see the steady increase in earthquake activity as this brown dwarf gets closer. Because, like I say, when the energy comes in, it has to do something. One thing it causes plates to shift and move. It causes volcanoes, volcanic activity. Volcanism has increased on our planet significantly. So, these are some of the things you'll see happen. So
it's just like a microwave oven that makes the what you put in it boil from the inside and. All right. Yeah.
Sure. Perfect analogy. So that's what So those are the three things that can happen. Nothing. We could have a global catastrophe, or we could have some localized catastrophes based on earthquakes and volcanism. So those are the three different things that can happen. Nobody can say for sure exactly what will happen. All we can know is in the ancient texts, sometimes when it passed, those are the three different scenarios that occurred. One time that it occurred, though, was the global massive flood. And they knew that the Anunnaki knew the flood was coming because they could predict all these different alignments, and they knew that it would cause a massive catastrophe on Earth. And that's why you have the Epic of Gilgamesh and Zizidra and all that, where they actually went down and told him, who's Noah, how to build this vessel to save himself and his family and so forth and so on, while they watched and monitored from above in a spaceship. But this Planet X is very, very real. So I sent you 2 images. One image is not zoomed in, and the other image is zoomed in to take a look at actually what Planet X looks like.
I'm just gonna find it here. Let's see. You have one here. Oh yeah,
first screenshot. Yeah. So in the first screenshot, we're looking at the worldwidetelescope.org. Okay, worldwidetelescope.org. We'll provide the link. anybody can get access to this information. This is actually how I first started finding Mars anomalies, through this program, this software. Okay, and when you go into a worldwide telescope, you go right to the stars, right into your solar system, and you can actually surf around with your mouse and look for different areas, different star systems. You can look for different zodiacs. So right now I'm in Taurus. Okay, that's where you see that funny yellow, trace around. It's in Taurus. Now in Taurus, I went to 2-mass infrared mode and then zoomed in. And if you go to the second image, when you zoom in from 2-mass infrared mode, and we'll provide the coordinates to this for you so you can look it up for yourself.
So what we are seeing here in the second picture is Nibiru.
We're looking at Planet X. We're looking at the dwarf, what they call Planet X, which is really a brown dwarf star, okay, or a red dwarf. Nibiru is one of the little dots on the exterior that orbits it. If you look very closely at this, you'll see a couple things. One thing you're going to see is that there's planets orbiting this brown dwarf star. The second thing you're going to see is that there's a lot of gases being given off by this brown dwarf, kind of trailing it. And if you really look at it from a specific angle, you'll notice that it has what appears to be wings, and you always see these red stars above the Egyptians' heads with these little wings coming out the side. That, I believe, is the brown dwarf star that they're doing it in commemoration of. Okay, I don't think it's our sun. It's this red thing that they put over their heads is always this brown dwarf, in my opinion.
So I have to be clear on this one. What you call the brown dwarf star is, of course, the one in the middle that's red and brown, and Nibiru is the one just below it, a little blue square. No, sorry, a little blue sphere.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Okay, and it has its own, and Nibiru has its own moons as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we're looking at here is what very, very few people get a chance to see. If you go to Google Sky and look this up, there's a giant black patch over it. So,
okay.
Why is that? Out of all the star systems we can see on Google Sky, and all the planets we can see, this one specific coordinate is a big, giant black patch, and you can't see anything behind it. Very strange. Why would they put it just over that one area, So I was very fortunate to be able to find it on Worldwide Telescope. Okay, so this is it.
This is really great. I really like this picture here.
Yeah. A lot of people have never seen this.
You have done a lot of work on this one here.
Thank you.
This is
now, what do you think? They have to look at it in 2-mass infrared mode. If they look to the left on the image, there's a drop-down menu, and I have 2-mass infrared selected because you can't see it in normal viewing levels. You have to go to infrared to view this this brown dwarf.
Oh yeah, I see that here. Yes. This is awesome. Billy?
So.
Thank you a million times for your time telling us about Nibiru X and the brown dwarf star. I learned a little bit today, and I'm glad I did. This is very interesting.
Yeah.
I want to thank you again for taking your time to explain what you know about it for us. Has there anything you want to add to it before we stop?
I would just tell people, don't worry about catastrophes and things like that. Just live your life, enjoy every single day. It could be here in 25 years, it could be here in 100 years, it could be here in 300 years. We don't know.
No.
Nobody will know the time of the day it will arrive. It is what I consider what I call the Son of Man, S-U-N of man. And I think that it definitely is part of our solar system, as NASA has stated. But just live your life and enjoy life, and don't let it bother you. Don't let it take you to so much worry that you're worried about, every day when is catastrophe going to hit. I wouldn't worry about that right now.
No. Billy, thank you for joining us here today.
Thank you.
Yes.
Vote on the news, and here's the winner. There's a huge hidden heavenly body right here in our solar system. Evidence is mounting that either a brown dwarf star or a gas giant planet lurking at the outermost reaches of our solar system, far beyond the planet Pluto. According to the British newspaper The Independent, the object is 4 times the size of Jupiter. Experts say the presence of such a massive object could explain why a barrage of comets has been coming from that direction.
Scientists say it may be a new planet on the edge of our solar system. It's called Tyche, named for an ancient Greek goddess. If it's real, Tyche is a supergiant, 4 times the size of Jupiter, made of hydrogen and helium. Scientists from the University of Louisiana say it hasn't been found because it's so far away, 15,000 times farther from the sun.